So as you can see, slightly different for this video. Coming up to Christmas time, we decided what we're going to do is do a little bit of a fun twist on most Googled. So we're going to take some of the most Googled questions about golf and have a couple of seasoned fitters answer any of the questions that come up.
Very seasoned, by the way.
Very seasoned, like the turkey will be, and see what answers we can come up with. So we're going to start off with, and these aren't necessarily in order of how they come. These are just a variety of ones that have been selected, not by us, but from the team behind some of the YouTube content as to what to answer. So first one, do you have to use a tee?
Do you have to use a tee? Well, certainly when it comes to the big stick, the driver.
I don't have to.
You don't have to. You could be Laura Davis, but even she propped it up on a little bit of turf.
Yeah, there's that great video of her taking a
give it a whack, raise it, bang. But you have to be very, very accomplished in order to do something like that. I think certainly with the driver and where the best method for a driver is in terms of angle attack, you need the tee peg to create that angle attack.
Yeah.
So there is a logic to that, and that applies to a fairway wood as well. With irons, I think over the course of time you get players who would rather put it on a bit of turf, but even then they might bump the turf just to give it a slight more forgiveness in raising it. So I would say it's certainly a help. It's certainly a help.
Yeah.
Certainly at a lower level, say a beginner or an improving golfer, the tee peg is always going to give you more leeway.
Yeah, a lot of golfers actually, fairway woods, irons, hybrids are designed to be hit off the ground. So actually don't tee them too high. Tee it like a good line.
Certainly in the hybrid case, I'm not a hybrid person, but when I have used hybrids, I barely have it off the ground. It's just maybe 2 mil and that's it. Yeah. So it's a little bit of leeway, forgiveness element to it, but you want that strike point in a good location.
So driver, yes. Rest of the bag, not necessarily, but if you're going to, just don't tee it too high.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
What's your first one?
Do golf clubs count as checked baggage?
Oh, that one the most checked. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it depends who you travel with.
Exactly that.
Depends. So if you're on an airline like, I've always travelled with BA, and there are many things that have not necessarily been where they're like over the years, but actually golf clubs are always form part of your checked luggage allowance.
Yeah.
So you generally have you might have a suitcase and got sort of sports equipment. The golf clubs have counted as part of your allowance. So generally, I think it's up to
25 kilos.
So 25 or 27
25 kilos.
Yeah, so don't load golf balls up into them because they weigh a lot.
That's a lot of golf balls. That's a lot of golf balls.
Technically, they say a pair of shoes, a reasonable amount of golf balls. I seem to remember, which is different depending on the golfer. But yeah, for some airlines they do, but others you get charged no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So,
I hope BA are not watching this, but when I flew to Malaga recently, my checked bag, and they allow golf clubs, BA will allow golf clubs as a checked bag. Other airlines, Ryanair or EasyJet, whatever, they stipulate the nature of what you're taking. So sporting equipment could be a different rate to a checked bag, but they would always charge. I mean, I had an economy plus ticket with BA, and I got one checked bag, and because of the one that goes on in the cabin, I had all the heavy stuff like golf shoes in my golf bag. So I did have about 4 or 5 pairs. So I'm not saying, hope BA's not watching, but I have had, as long as I'm within that weight allowance. And 25 kilos, to be fair, set of clubs, golf balls, shoes, the odd outer garment.
Well, at least now you haven't got the old FootJoy Classics that weighed a ton, you're fine with that. Why do golfers wear a glove?
I think it's
Some too.
Yeah, I think it's part security, and it's almost like it's evolved, hasn't it? Who wore a golf club from the very? Who was the first person to wear a golf club? But obviously they thought, well, in the old days of leather grips, and they've lost traction. And even, if you remember what the old leather grips used to be, they dimensions are very, very small.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
So someone along the line discovered that a leather glove could have even been a driving, like a driving glove. but they thought, oh, there's good traction on that, and it's evolved, and it's always, you do get your Tommy 2 gloves or your Aaron Rise who wear 2, but it's rare.
Or Corey Pavin
who wear none.
Yeah.
But I think it's very much a security, the feeling of security. It's in your lead hand for a right hand or left-hander, you know, your right hand for your left-hander, right hand for your left-hander. So, but it's I think it's security, and it's almost psychological. Then it becomes psychological because then, for every full shot, I want that security. But I've often lost the glove in the winter because what I find certainly with leather gloves, the way leather behaves in the cooler environment, that I actually feel I've got more traction without a glove at all.
Yeah, so I get my hands sweat a bit, so I find I kind of
no, but I mean, like
not
if
cold weather,
it was
but
like
even
4
then,
degrees,
bit more traction.
Yeah,
You need to
but
keep a hand warm.
No, I've many a time I've practiced without a glove at all in the winter. Certainly in the summer, I need that element of security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So.
And when it's wet, actually, the rain grip gloves make a massive
Well,
difference when it's really wet.
there's a nice little tip for anyone in that if you take something like a FootJoy rain grip, you need one of those. Any golfer should have one of those in the bag because they're not great in dry. You never wear it in the dry, but once it's wet, it's incredibly good compared to a normal glove.
And for a glasses wearer, until they get really wet, they're a very good glasses wipe.
Oh
I found that.
yeah. Best golf club to chip with?
Now, actually, for a lot of golfers, not your most lofted wedge. I think the higher in loft you go, the more skills required. You've got to hit it harder. You're reliant on spin. So for a lot of players, something along the lines of a 9-iron, 8-iron, 9. If there's nothing in the way, pretty much all the top short game players would say, from a simplicity point of view, get it on the ground and running as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I've always found, because I have a bit of a hit at mine, I need a bit of loft because I'm not the most subtle player in the world. So if I play a 7-iron, it goes off my hands, it goes miles.
Yeah.
But I'm playing a lot more shots now with less loft than I ever used to because it's just a safer shot. And that's why the chippers are in the bag. They're an 8-iron loft, 7-iron loft.
Yeah.
But they make it simpler. The wider the sole, makes it simpler to strike. So it's more forgiving.
I think
with
my
less
answer
loft.
to that, I don't think there is a best club for chipping. I think it falls down to standards of the player, and what they should always take on board is learn to use less loft. Very much what you said about getting it on the ground early. Look at what you've got to cover as a distance. If you've got 5 yards to the fringe and then 25 yards on, well, why are you carrying it 20 yards? Carry it to the fringe, and then as Sevi would say, I have to mention him somewhere, it's to get the ball into a roll, like treating it like a putt for the majority of that distance. So there isn't a one loft, but I do feel it also falls to standards. And in reference to the loft side and the higher lofts, what you have to bear in mind, I use my hand as an example. If we've got a 60 wedge, so it's like this, and we've got the ball here, we're contacting the ball. We only have to raise our finger a little bit to hit very high on the head, and only a little bit lower to hit it on the leading edge. So the quality of the lie and the quality of the technique and the strike point and the outcome is very much more volatile. Once you start bringing the loft down, that change of height on strike has less bearing on the outcome. So the stronger loft, you can control strike point better with a stronger loft.
Nice,
so that's my explanation.
Yeah, I like that. Very good.
Yeah.
Why do golf balls have dimples?
Purely on flight, it's aerodynamics. If we didn't have dimples, we wouldn't really be playing this game. The dimples in golf are the reason we play golf. Without dimples, we could not flight that ball. Pure and simple. It's aerodynamics. And if you go to a range and and let's say we go to ranges where the balls are very, very good condition, they've all got defined dimples, your experience of practice is better because you're seeing consistent flight from shot to shot. when you get the road golf ball where the dimples are worn out, the
Half
ball would just
ball's
fly
got-
everywhere and it dips out the air. It's bizarre.
Get that lovely fading draw.
Yeah, it's just, you know, so the dimples are critical to the game we play.
Yeah.
And when you've got the different manufacturers who they mess around with configuration of dimples, the amount of dimples, the sizing of them. It's all about optimizing performance of flight, and that's what it's all about. It's critical
I think
to the
it was
game.
the original Haskell, kind of the rubber, and they moved away from the featheries into
Yeah.
more of a rubber compound. They found that the smooth ones, as they cut up, they flew better. So
Yeah.
that's where it all started from.
Yeah,
Way back when.
which is going back to the cricket cheats, I suppose. You know, cricket cheats
Yeah,
rather than
okay. We're not going to say anything about
No.
that.
No.
Very political. Yeah.
No. That was my. No, that's my question now. Why does my golf club make sparks?
Oh yeah, so I've got horrible writing. So why does my golf club
Should have been
drive
a doctor.
spark? Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
Talented, as Mother said. So the sparks come from the nature you've got of the metal you've got in the sole of the club. So as it contacts a stone or a bit of grit on the ground, that generates heat and therefore generates a spark.
Yeah,
so
I think
it's normally
more,
a titanium.
I think it's more likely to be on a driver, a titanium, or a combination of alloys that behave like the flint. Like, you know, when you talk about people starting campfires, they're behaving like flints.
exactly.
And you won't see it from steel, but you will see it from titanium. It's behaving like, almost like the, you know, on a cigarette lighter, you know, the flint.
Yeah.
It's that spark. It's behaving like that.
Yeah, speed, friction, and the right
Yeah,
materials.
yeah.
How do you increase smash factor? Now that's got to be one of the top questions out there. I mean, these all
Yeah,
are, but that's got
yeah.
to be one of the top ones.
Well, it's the quality of strike. The more central it is, the better the number's going to be. Now, obviously, that smash
Smash,
factor.
so those who don't, smash
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a ratio of ball speed to club speed. So an efficiency ratio. So the higher the smash, with
Yeah.
the driver looking for 1 point high, depending on the launch monitor, 1.47 to 1.5.
Yeah, yeah. So it's dependent on the club you're using. Obviously, the stronger the loft, the lot more likely the smash is increased. But it's the quality of the strike. And when you're comparing what creates high or low smash, well, yes, it's how close you are to the centre of the face. But it's also, let's say, relatively speaking, you'll get a player who offers more dynamic loft, who's weaker in smash number, someone who's stronger. It's very much, you see this in irons, when someone is very strong dynamically and the smashes are fantastic, but it could be compromising the flight because their initial launch is too low. But generally, I think it's a combination of dynamic loft and strike point. That's the way I see that.
And potentially squaring the face. If you're missing as a
Yeah.
right-hander off to the right
That's
fade
exactly
or a
it.
left-hander off to the left, then
Yeah.
squaring, that's going to be losing ball speed. So square the face up.
Yeah, so it's my analogy. My analogy is the nail in the wall or the piece of wood. You give it glancing blows, you're hitting that nail for 5 minutes. You get that one solid blow down the line with square head that goes in straight away, and that's golf really. You know.
I should have been listening to these last 10 years in the other bay, all these analogies, and kind of now just hopping into my.
But it's a great way to
It's
get the
very
point
true.
across.
Yeah, it's very true.
You know, analogies. I always give an extreme analogy in order to get the point across. But
Very valid.
Yeah.
Very valid. Right.
you're one on my one.
Your one, I think. Yeah.
I've done that one. Playing golf without a driver.
Okay. Yeah. So playing off without a driver, drivers technically is the longest club you can hit off the tee, but it's also one of if not the hardest to use. So longer shaft length and the least loft, which means most chance of hitting it offline or hitting it inefficiently. So you look at some of the best players out there. You take Henrik Stenson, for example. He had a strong 3-wood that he used and hit it as far as most people's drivers. So if you're inconsistent with a driver or you struggle to get quality strike and straight shots with it, then actually you may well be better off going down to a fairway wood and hitting it in play. Or actually you might be more efficient with the shorter shaft on the fairway wood and therefore hit it basically as far as you'd hit a driver. So therefore, what does the driver do for you other than put you in trouble? So for a lot of players, it can be the case that going to just playing the 3-wood off the tee gives you more consistent results.
Yeah, I mean, my view on that is again, it's techniques. If someone, I'll give you a prime example, someone with a strong downward strike on a driver, well, dynamically they can't make a standard loft on a driver work, whereas a 3-wood, they get fantastic numbers. And that's often the case. And also, I think the length of club as well is the longer it gets, the harder it is to control face angle. So when you think about it on the market at the moment, and companies bringing out mini drivers with a little bit more loft, shorter build lengths, and that can be a good way forward for a lot of people who need that first step up from using a fairway wood, a mini driver where a little bit more loft, shorter shaft is a good stepping stone. So
right, last couple.
Yeah.
So second to last one.
Why is golf hard?
And it is, let's face it, it is really hard. As a sport, I think part of it is the margin of error is tiny in terms of, because of how far the ball travels. If you think you're playing tennis, the far end of the court is, I don't know, what would it be, 20, 30 yards away?
Yeah.
Whereas a golf hole's up to, can be 600 yards plus. You're hitting each shot 100, 200, 250. So the margin of error, the same miss, from a degrees point of view, if you're slightly off target with a tennis shot, you're still likely in the court. The same amount of miss with a golf shot is so much further offline because of how far it extrapolates out.
Yeah.
So number one, you've got the ball going a long way, and therefore your accuracy level has to be so much higher to hit the target. That for me is the primary. That's the primary reason.
I think one of the obvious ones. Most sports that are played, there's very fixed dimensions. We kick a football, and primarily the dimensions are similar. You're playing against a different team, but when you look at snooker, it's a fixed dimension.
Although that's also a hard sport.
It's terribly hard. That is one of the hardest sports. But where I see golf is in like tennis, there is fixed dimension. You get different surfaces, therefore different bounces. Yeah. So clay, you'll get the one that kicks up, whereas on grass it'll go out flatter. And that's why you get specialists, people at the net, because the rallies are shorter in grass and so forth. But I think with golf, you've got the variance. There's no two courses the same. There's no conditions the same from 2 days. Yeah. So that same course is no longer fixed, because you'll be playing in calm condition one day and 25, 30 mile an hour winds the next. And that wind can change as well. So the whole nature of the hole that you played the day before was 25 into, it's now 25 across, from left to right, right to left. So the nature of golf is always changing. And I feel it's also with golf, the process of learning the game, you learn a technique, but it's only part of the story. Yeah. The course management and the interpretation of conditions makes it harder. Yeah?
I think the other sports, and this is why other sports are hard as well, but I think with golf it's the mental aspect of it's only you. In tennis, someone can hit a shot, you can't return it. They can beat you. In golf, actually, someone can shoot a low score, but technically so could you. Yeah. So it's actually only you who controls what that golf ball does. And I think some of that is why golf mentally is such a challenging sport. And frustrating.
Yeah, I think also you can sort of break golf down into mini departments. The driving aspect, hitting irons on a full shot, hitting a chip shot, hitting a bunker, hitting a putt. They're all different disciplines in many respects. Yes, you can have a full swing technique, but then within that, there is how to shape a golf ball for a certain shot, and learning that aspect of moving it left to right, right to left, high, low.
It's a complexity of technique.
It's the complexity, but also the departments within the sport itself.
Right, so what do we round up with? Is golf a waste of money?
I'll let you answer this one first, because I've got my own views.
Okay, so I think it's only a waste of money if you're not getting out of the game what you want to. So I think, and there's a grave danger for a lot of players that is the case. I think our expectation levels of what we can achieve are shaped a bit by the pros and how good they are. But ultimately, you know, if you're playing golf to enjoy the sport, and actually it's a very social sport, it's just a question of what you regard as value as to whether it's a waste of money or not.
Yeah.
And for some it's an awful lot of money,
Yeah.
and for others it's not an
Yeah.
awful lot.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, because the way I see it, it's the enjoyment you derive from it. I think it's priceless to some,
Yeah.
and it's marginal for others who question. You know, you get guys who are very transient, and they'll have one membership, one place, and come back to sport, they give it up, and they say, "Oh, I gave up the game for 5 years." I can't imagine myself doing that.
No,
I'm done. You know, 5 years without golf. You might as well put me in prison. You know what I mean? So,
Careful. You're wearing stripes.
yeah. But I'll give you a great example, and I thought it'd be a good way to sum it up. One of the members at Weybrook Park lost his wife recently. Paul was suffering, and the golf club, they embraced him. He would be indoors. Paul come up, they'd bring him up for dinner.
Yeah.
He got involved in golf again. He's not been not been particularly well himself, but it's a great story of why golf is so big for him. And that's also priceless, isn't it? That here's someone where golf is really become the solace in bad times.
Yeah, it's like kind of community, the club element.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Golf, arguably, you know, certainly as much, arguably more than other sports, if you are part of that kind of environment, gives you that support network,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly
friendship and time,
Yeah.
time away from the you know, the stresses and strains of life generally.
And I think what is brilliant about golf is the way people, with whatever's going on in their world, they've got that time to almost switch off and re-energize, and it's a good thoughtful time, and you can be a serious golfer where you're very competitive, but then for others it's leisure time, meeting up with friends. It's good exercise. It's not what Kate gets up to in the gym.
Certainly not that.
But you know, walking 4 or 5 miles is a good solid exercise for a lot of people, and I think it's a massive. It's a massive outlet for the more senior golfers,
Keeps them
both
active,
socially. You know, people lose partners and stuff, and I think it keeps people in a good frame of mind and a good place. So, it's what you derive from it. You know, the value is derived by how much you get.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Very, very well said.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you very much for joining us. It was all inspired. We've done another video on what the guests, you know, some of the questions that come through. You know, what are the guest golf balls on the market, things like that. So link to some of the other videos on our channel, and you'll find plenty of content there. And so we ended actually a much more highbrow note than I thought we would, based on some of the questions that could have come through. But I hope you've enjoyed that, and we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon.